Regular meeting of the Town of Platteville's Planning Commission. It is currently 6:30. I'd like to start out with a moment of silence for all of those men and women that helped give us the freedom that we enjoy today. If we'd all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Carol, you may have roll call, please.
Chairman Rich Smith.
Here.
Steve Schaefer.
Here.
Harold Leggett.
Present.
Sandra Smith. Here. Michael Kemper. Adrian Sandoval. Here. Troy Blum.
Here.
Have we all read the agenda? I would entertain a motion. So approved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. We do have audience participation this evening. If there's anyone that would like to bring something in front of the commission that we may not address this evening, but would take under advisement, you may come to the podium, state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes. I don't think we have it.
I don't see anybody on the sign-up sheet.
No, we didn't. Okay. We have one item on the consent agenda up for approval, and those are the minutes from the May 21st meeting. I would entertain a motion to accept the minutes on this. Motion accepted. To approve the consent agenda.
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. We have one action item this evening, and that's reference to a public hearing. Before we get into the public hearing, I need to recess this meeting, and then we will reconvene a public hearing that was initiated on May 21st. It is 6:32, and the public hearing is now open. It's concerning the conditional review use for the property located at 531 Energy Park Drive, Platteville. And Lincoln Fulkers is the applicant's representative. You are Lincoln?
I am, sir.
Okay. The intent of the application is to construct a non-permanent explosive bunker and concrete barricade at the site. If you would like to, you can address us at this time.
Absolutely.
Should we do it in that order?
Actually, at this time, I'll defer to Melissa to kind of summarize where we're at this point, if that's okay.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that would be better.
Good. All right. Thank you. Yes, what I'm going to do is talk a little bit about the application and the criteria that are described in the staff report, but we'll just kind of walk through that in summary and make a recommendation, and then they can go ahead and explain more about their operations. So this is an application for a conditional review use for a property that is Lot 2 of the Platteville Energy Park, second filing. And good idea if I were recorded. Thank you. So the property is platted, and it is zoned industrial as part of the Platteville Energy Park. So in that zoning classification, a explosives bunker is allowed as a conditional review use. So we kind of contemplated that there would be oil and gas services related businesses in the park. But if in a case like this, where there's an explosives bunker, we wanted to have an opportunity through this public hearing to make sure this is the right location and all of the necessary permits and mitigations are addressed through that process. So that's why we're here. So there are criteria for the conditional review use, as you read. And I think in touching on the highlights, a lot of what we're looking at, is it in compliance with the zoning, which through this conditional review use it is, and the intent of that zone district, which I've described to you. We did contemplate explosive bunkers in this location. Is it compatible with other uses? It is in the Platteville Energy Park, and so, as you guys know well, a lot of these are oil and gas related services. So it's very typical of what we see. This is the only explosives bunker in this case, but there could be others. So we believe it is compatible with the surrounding area and typical of what we see. A lot of what we rely on in this case are the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives regulations. So they are the ones that really review and permit before we do a use like this. So we rely on their requirements for things like distances from other related uses, the materials that are required to be used, and the construction of the bunker, and so on. And so Mr. Folger can go ahead and explain some of that to you, but you read that they have, as far as we know, all those necessary permits. And part of our conditional review use permit requires that they continue to comply with those. So it kind of ties it up in a nice bow for us. So, with that, there's really no additional traffic because their employees are the ones who are accessing the bunker. There's no utilities that are served, are needed or required for use like this. So I think, that's kind of the summary of the criteria. So with that, staff is making a favorable recommendation to you based upon these criteria and findings in the staff report, as well as the attached resolution. And I'll make note that in my staff report I had 3 conditions. In fact, there are 4 listed in the resolution, which is what you will be adopting if you decide to do that. So it is the 4 conditions, which again are compliance with the state and federal regulations, that the bunker and barricade need to be located where they are on the site plan, which you guys have a copy of and have seen. That they do require the permit to be signed before they commence operations, and then any other minor modifications that need to be made. So I think that summarizes it pretty well.
Any questions for Melissa?
So again, Mr. Folker is available for a presentation.
If you would like.
I would be happy to.
Please do.
So first of all, good evening and thank you for having us. My name is Lincoln Folkers. I am the Director of Safety and Compliance for Reliance Oilfield Services. This is really what I do, is ensure that we are following all of the laws and guidelines and permitting applications and things that we are required to follow. One thing I do want to point out, and Melissa touched on it a little bit, we currently have a bunker constructed at this location. We moved into this facility in May of last year, started construction on that bunker in April of last year, went through our full process, talked to the fire department, made notifications, and completely missed that we needed a conditional use permit. Tony and Melissa have been wonderful and working with us to get us back into compliance on this. So I would like to take the opportunity to apologize for missing this. It's not something that we would normally miss, but we did. So if you'll, I think each one of you probably has a presentation in front of you. The first thing that I would like to touch on is, who is our governing body? And it's the ATF, it's the BATFE. They really set the standard and make the requirements that we are required to follow. We have to make notifications anytime there's a material change to a bunker or a location where we do business. And to put it mildly, no news is good news from the ATF. We are inspected by them, but when we make notification to them, if we don't hear back from them, that's acceptance. Okay? We don't get a letter that says you're authorized. We get a permit that says you're authorized, but they do come inspect us on a very regular basis. So the next page would be our explosives permit issuance requirements. I'm not going to read every one of those to you guys. These are the requirements that we have to meet in order for the ATF to issue a permit, which is on the very next page. This is a copy of our actual permit that is hanging in our building from the ATF. You'll see that the license or permit number is in the top right-hand corner of that page. And it is valid. When did this go into effect? Well, it's valid through May 1st of 2022. We have had inspections at this location and have had no issues with any of those inspections to date. Our barricade or our magazines and barricade are in compliance, and all of our storage weights and everything else are also in compliance with ATF requirements. Page 5 is explosive storage magazine requirements. And our magazines are custom built by a company called Armamag. That's what they build, is explosive magazines. And they build them, some of them bigger than this room for big industrial use, and some of them, like we have, that are 7 feet by 7 feet by 7 feet for light storage, of explosives. But they do come with requirements laid out by the ATF as far as construction and then class and quantity of explosive to be stored in the magazine. So these are positioned in accordance with the table of distances, and I believe the table of distances is a couple pages back. We'll cover that. During the time the explosives are stored in the magazine. So what really sparked this whole conversation was we noticed across the street from the 531 Energy Park Drive, there was a building being constructed, and by the stakes that they had there, we figured out that it was going to impact our explosive storage weights. So I came to the city and I said, can I get a plan of what's being built across the street so I can figure out distances for our explosive storage weights? And immediately had a phone call and said, you guys are storing explosives there? So here we are tonight. So to follow that up, you'll see on page 6, this is the letter to the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms dated March 27, 2018. That is actually before we moved into the facility, but we were giving the ATF notice that we were moving from Fort Lupton to Platteville to a new facility, and we were trying to give them advance notice. We're required to give them at least 3 days notice before making any material change to the property. And again, no news from the ATF is good news. If they send something back and say, no, you can't do that, then that's the 3-day policy. The next thing you see is what they call the Explosives Magazine Worksheet. This is also something that we submit to the ATF, and it gives all of the identifying features of the magazine, the size and the thickness of the material, all of that goes with it. Additionally, a plat plan must be furnished. It does not necessarily have to be to scale, but it will indicate at a minimum all of the buildings on the premises. All of the magazines will be identified with distances between the magazines, as well as distances between magazines and inhabited buildings, public highways, and passenger railways. So if you'll think about it, at Platteville, we're impacted by all of those. So we have to take into consideration with the table of distances, what is our most limiting factor? So if it's an inhabited building, which is exactly what it's going to be when it goes across when that building goes up across the street from us. Currently, by ATF regulations, we're permitted for 1,200 pounds of storage at the Platteville facility. When that building goes up, it's going to drop us to 300 pounds in our current configuration. We have revamped the plans to separate our magazines from one location to 3 different locations on the site to actually give us that 1,200 pounds of storage weight back, because we will be within the table of distances and the separation of magazines to be able to store that way. It's perfectly legal, and it allows us the ability to grow. 300 pounds would cripple this business. I do not know that we would be able to sustain the growth that we've experienced since moving to Platteville at 300 pounds of weight. So the current plat plan is page 9. That's actually what is constructed at the 531 Energy Park Drive. I just wanted to put that in there so that you guys had references to what we were speaking about. Again, table of distances. You'll see those, and it probably looks like a bunch of jumbled up numbers to folks, and that's okay. We're looking at inhabited buildings being our most limiting factor. Believe it or not, we found the sweet spot between Highway 85 and the inhabited building that would give us 300 pounds per location and allow us to maintain our 1,200 pounds. So those are the 2 limiting factors for us. We can go more into that if you guys would like a little later. The proposed plat plan, this is not constructed yet. You can see this loosely, and I believe, Melissa, you've got the formal drawing on this as well?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, and I have a copy of it in there.
Okay, wonderful. So what we're proposing is basically to move the existing bunker back into the property a little bit deeper towards Highway 85, and then put the separation between the 2 magazines that are currently there. And I believe that's 32 feet, is that correct, Bill? 32 feet between the 2 magazines. And then one on the other side of the building. Each one of those areas would have the ability to store 300 pounds of explosives on location. Construction of barricades. The page here in the back is what we used to construct the original barricade. This is actually the barricade at the location currently. This is in construction phase, not finished. It's 2 layers of 2-foot wide concrete block. They extend, and the ATF requires us that from no angle, help me with this. Sorry.
No, that's fine. I'm Bill Moore. I'm the U.S. Explosive and Radiation Manager for Reliance. The criteria is that the barricades are actually there to prevent somebody from shooting the explosive magazine. So at no angle is anybody to actually see in the barricade and actually be able to see the magazines. That way they wouldn't be able to shoot it. And then also from anywhere on the roadway, 14 feet above the roadway, that they cannot see the top of the magazine.
Thank you. So these barricades are actually built tall enough that we actually go look. We do go look and make sure that there is no way that you can see. If you can't see it line of sight, you can't shoot at it. Additionally, if there were to be something happen inside these barricades, it's not going to contain it, but it's going to direct it upwards. Make sense? So they're very safe. The explosives that we store in there are very stable, and they take an explosive chain to actually get them to detonate. We have to use a very shock-sensitive explosive to an explosive that is not going to do anything. You can run over it with a truck, and it's not going to do anything unless it's acted on by another explosive. So that's what I've got for you guys tonight. Do you have any questions for me?
Are you looking to build a 4th one since you're looking for 1,200 pounds and you only have 3 facilities? Okay.
They're 400 pounds. Okay. Sorry,
Okay.
got misspoke.
Okay.
Yeah, they're 400 pounds apiece. So no, We're looking to build 3. Exactly what I have on that and what Melissa's got in that site plan is exactly what we're looking to do.
Obviously, the explosives will be coming and going.
Yes.
So on an average, what are you expecting to have?
Well, probably in the neighborhood of 400 to 600 pounds on hand.
Right.
Now, I say that loosely because there's times when we've got explosives going out, but we've made an order because we have jobs that come in. And maybe it would help you understand what we do, right? Why are we having explosives in Platteville? Our business is based around perforating wells for frac, okay? So the explosives are actually a shape charge that they use to shoot through the casing, through the cement, and into formation, so that when frac pumps down, they're actually getting fluid into formation and allowing that well reservoir to start, flowing, right? So we have to, we load, they call them guns. We load guns full of explosive charges with big pipes, and they are very controlled. They go down the hole, they shoot them in sequence, and then we bring the scrap back to the yard. So at any point in time, we could have up to the 1,200 pounds on location, depending on what customer demand is for guns going out to the location. But we could be as low as 60 pounds. So it fluctuates all of the time in there. That way it goes back and forth.
How much powder? From what I understand with these guns, is that it doesn't take a lot of powder in each one to perforate the well.
That is very true. So each charge, they're approximately that big around, and each charge has anywhere from 19.5 to 25 grams of powder. Grains of powder, not grams. Grains.
It's grams.
Is it grams? Grams. 19.5 to 25 grams of powder in each one. There's not a lot of powder in them, but they produce a very high energy and shoot into that formation.
They're in an enclosed area.
Yes. Yes. And they're directed, right? They move basically out in a cone shape.
Right.
We should have brought some tonight so that we could show them.
Are your bunkers just 3-sided?
No, ma'am, they're 4-sided. They're completely enclosed.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a small drive-through space that we could run a forklift through there. But again, from any angle, you cannot see those magazines stored in there.
So it's a lot different from, last dynamite I used was crystalline that you added an activator to it.
No, it's very different.
Yeah, well, it's been a long time.
Yeah, this is it's very safe actually, and it's very controlled. All of our explosives are electronically controlled by a switch. You see on your computer an IP address. All of our explosives that we use are controlled from the truck, and we actually have to activate a switch inside the gun from the truck cab and communicate a very specific IP code to this to get that to go off. They've made them pretty safe.
Well, explosives come a long ways.
Yes, they have. Yes, they have.
And black powder and my crystals is the last.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever had unintended explosions?
No, ma'am. We have not.
How long have you been in business?
So Reliance has been in business since 2014. Before Reliance, we were FMC Technologies, and before FMC Technologies, we were Pure Energy Services, which started in 2006 or 8. And we've never had an unintended detonation.
Okay.
Knock on wood.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Your employees are the ones that actually do the detonation
Yes, sir.
on the site?
They are. We generally have a supervisor who runs the truck, and then 2 or 3 operators that are on the ground. They prepare everything and get the guns ready, final ready. So we do the loading at the base, and then they take them out and they actually cap them on location just before they go in the hole. So they go in the hole, they shoot everything, and then when it comes back to the yard, it's just spent steel. But it's our employees that handle everything. We're required by the ATF to submit employee possessor forms for every employee that we have. And our employees, if they don't pass the ATF background check, are not allowed to handle explosives and are immediately removed from any jobs that would even come close to those.
Awesome information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you.
Any more questions? I guess I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve resolution PC 2019-03, a resolution recommending approval of a conditional review used to construct a non-permanent concrete bunker and barricade for storing explosives at 531 Energy Park Drive as presented.
Second.
Before we do that, before we go for a vote, I forgot to close the public hearing, and at 6:53. Now, I will entertain a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's been carried. Do we have anything else from the commission for this evening? If not, we'll go to our editor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had asked Mary to put my report to the board in your package, so it's been a while since we've met, so I'll give you an update on a few things that we're working on. This time of year, as you well see, I review and I focus on budget, where we're at midpoint of the year. So I summarize our capital projects. Then at the end, there's a few projects that I'm continuing to work on, some are with Melissa. A couple of new employees that we've hired recently is Kathy O'Malley, starting last week in the front office, the deputy clerk, and then Jan Torres over a month ago as the recreation senior director. But lastly, I do want to mention the rumors that are going around. Chairman and I spoke about it. About 7-Eleven going across the street from Town Hall. Melissa and I met with the developer. They're under contract. The property's not sold or bought yet, but they're doing their due diligence. Of course, they want to meet with us to see if what they want to propose is realistic. Also, Steve Gutierrez, our town engineer, and David Brand was in attendance as well. They brought their civil engineer, and they're basically equivalent to a planner, I believe. But it's promising. I think we answered all the questions that they had. Really didn't have anything that were red flags, so to speak. The one biggest concern that Dave and I had, along with Steve and Melissa, is the large truck traffic volume going in and out there. They're not really set up for large truck traffic. They're set up more for the oil and gas, smaller vehicle traffic, and then of course local citizens and commuters along the highway. If all goes well, they'll finish the acquisition of the property, and by the end of next year, if not sooner, then we may have a new slushy station, we call it, across the street. There is a food element, but it's not fast food. So if you go to, and I reference Come and Go, which I should have a competitor, but you have your burritos, your breakfast pizzas, blah, blah, blah. You know, you have your hot food that's prepped and warmed up. So it's something, but it could be a good revenue source for the town, I believe. So, great corner. I bring this up because it's really not a public hearing process. What they're going to do is to turn 2 flats into 1, because it's 2 separate properties. And then a site plan primarily. Are we going to add anything to that? It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, it complies with what we contemplated for that corner. That's what it's doing.
Right. Yeah. Community commercial, this is all.
You're talking about big trucks, or you're talking like semis?
Correct. And they made it clear that we reference the 2 stations we have in town. Obviously, one is suited for large vehicles, the other one's not. So this will be closer to, even though it's a bigger footprint, it's really not designed to where a trucker wants to go in there willingly.
Right.
Except for a smaller tanker to fill their tanks. So it was a good meeting, about 2 hours, and they're moving forward. So I'm hoping to have something happen by the end of the year as far as formalization, and then building permit process. We talked about the whole gamut of the process. So, but I want to bring that up because I know that's kind of the hot rumor right now going around here. So, sure.
Well, it's promising. It's promising.
It is.
That's the thing.
We even mentioned revitalizing downtown and having a play meeting this fall, hiring a consultant. So that led to not a whole bunch of fancy bright paint and lights. We wanted more kind of a streetscape thing that we talked about back in 2016, more of a earth tone, stone. Of course, 7-Eleven has a marquee sign, but to fit the community, kind of like on the other end, I referenced Dollar General as more of an earth tone with landscaping type of facility.
They can do their neon lights facing 85 and then warm, welcoming town facing Maine. That's perfectly acceptable.
The only thing I think they weren't planning on doing is building a sidewalk, and I said that's required. You have to have pedestrian access.
Especially with Slurpees.
Especially with Slurpees.
Hopefully.
And that's funny because that was the hot topic of Slurpees. Slushies, whatever you want to call them. But that's all I have. If any questions, the commission may have.
Probably where the house is across the street. Or diagonally across the street.
It's diagonally. It's Will County Auto Sales and then SSI. It's that block. So,
I don't know. Randy had that contract for a while. My goodness.
he's probably approached me half a dozen times in the last year asking me why I haven't been approached yet. And I said, it'll happen when it happens.
You can't force it.
Nope.
So,
So that's promising as far as small retail, and I don't know how if it'll impact the other two, but on the north side of town, maybe better suited. The other two are around 66 and 85, so they capture that volume of traffic.
oh yeah.
That's part of our goal with retail is to capture volumes. We're not a big city, we're a small community. If I get a retail out there by the energy park on the property we bought, which is our next goal, we'll talk about that in the future. Good.
That'd be a good spot.
I hear a lot about coffee shops and drive-thrus, so we'll find out.
Taco Bell.
Taco Bell, KFC, all kinds of stuff.
Taco Bell / KFC.
Taco Bell wouldn't work for me. Well, does the commission have anything else? Do you have any questions for Troy? Well, I guess all that's left to be done is to adjourn. So be it.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, gentlemen.
You don't have to jump up for us.
Somebody else was, that I see.
Well, if you want to see her, you could change this place.
That's okay.
Yeah? Yeah.